Good morning and welcome everyone. In our last talk on Zoroastrianism, we had gone over a lot of metaphysical terminology in Sanskrit, and it was given because without the metaphysics it cannot be understood. But keeping up with the reading, as Krishna says, he incarnates on earth from age to age for the preservation of the just and destruction of the wicked. So these great religions come into the world to show us the right path towards that union with the higher self, which truly is either emancipation or what else can we call it? Becoming one with the higher self, becoming one with the all, and coming back on earth willingly out of compassion to serve. Now, in the last talk, we had said that Zarathustra or Zoroaster was one of those compassionate, perfected beings who came to start the Iranian line of culture and development in the world. And it is stated, which was given last time, that the reformer of that kind always comes for a specific purpose, and in line with that is the name that the teacher assumes. And Zoroaster's was the star who contemplates and sacrifices to the living sun. So that's what his name means. And of course we had said that that lineage that is carried on by other teachers that come, but they all assume the same name title because they're impersonal. They come to a particular task, so they assume that particular name title, but they're impersonal. So, according to the Debistan, which is the Iranian literature we will refer to, there were 13 Zoroasters, but according to the secret doctrine, the last one was the 7th. How we reconcile that is that some of the characters that are taken to be real reformers were not real reformers, so it's kind of mixed in the literature. So we had also introduced the term last time, Ahura Mazda. Ahura Mazda actually is the capital. Ahura is existence. I will put it here and continue from that. Existence or beingness. And Mazda is divine wisdom. Divine wisdom. This is Ahura Mazda. That was last time. Now, and we had said that the Zoroastrian Cosmogenesis is very old, and a question apparently has risen as to how old is this religion. And HPB tells us in the secret doctrine that it is very, very old, but it came to us from the Atlanteans. Atlanteans is the 4th race. We are the 5th sub-race of the 5th root. We're the Aryan race, or noble Aryan race. So Atlanteans obviously existed before us, and we are told that the 5th race has been in existence over 1 million years. So the reference is to Atlanteans, which is prior to that. So obviously it is millions of years old. but the historical era does not have any records, because most of the records all over the world has been destroyed. So we truly do not know exactly when this religion started, but it is a very old one. Now, she mentions two books. These are the modern books. One was Nietzsche's book, which was called Thus Spake Zarathustra. It has nothing to do with the Zoroastrian religion. It's like a figment, romance figment of his imagination that he wrote about. Really, it does not come close to anything that is the real religion of Zoroastrians. And the other one was Samuel Lang's A Modern Zoroastrian. Now that one has done tremendous damage to the religious belief of the Parsis, because he wrote that book as a world traveler and reading on the presumably Zoroastrian religion, and came up with that title, but it is truly a misnomer, because it has even misled the Parsis themselves. Now, why is it a misnomer? Well, last time we had said that the Zoroastrian religion is based on hylozoism. And we gave its meaning that that term means that life and matter are together. It cannot be separated. Hylozoism. Well, Lang, in his book, came up with dualism and fixed it onto the religion of the Parsis. So we need to be aware as to how transformation and change occurs from age to age, and here the people who are supposed to be the leaders are actually introducing this misnomer or untruth into the religion of the Parsis. Having said that, we had introduced that these ideas are metaphysical, they are anthropological, they're mythical, allegorical. So there are different interpretations to the truth of the Parsis that is contained in their religion. But today, unfortunately, even the Parsis don't believe in their own religion, because they have lost the key. They don't know what their religion stands for. Let me see, there was one other idea that I wanted to tell you. And the other idea we had introduced was Zervan Dorego Akerna. I'll put it up here. Zervan Dorego Kadota. And this means limitless time or circle. This was given last time. Okay, after Sarin said that. Okay. Now, I put here Ahura Mazda and gave the meaning underneath it, and also Spenta. These are terms that you would see in their religious books. And Spenta Mainyu is the source from which all comes. Angra Mainyu is the supplementing power that sustains it. What does that sound like to you? What does it sound to you like? The two primeval spirits what would that be in our terminology?
Primordial?
They are primordial, yes. But what does HPB tell us in the secret doctrine? What is the substance and spirit. Purusha and Prakriti. Yeah. So those two are like two sides of the coin, she tells us. One from the other cannot be separated because one without the other cannot exist. So this is what Hylazoism is, that life and substance or matter cannot be separate. It's the same ideology but expressed in a different way, because the spirit requires a vehicle to come through. How is it going to be visible into the world? The spirit is invisible. So in order to become visible and be creative in the world, it has to have a vehicle, and that vehicle is the objective or prakriti or substance or matter. And this is what Hylazoism is. So the terms are different, but the ideology is similar.
Well, the question I had was, what people are you talking about?
Parsis. Parsis are the old Iranians. Zoroastrian religion is almost extinct in the world. There's 95,000 of them left. Sorry, 95,000.
And that was Persian before?
They're not, these, all Iranians are not Parsis.
Okay.
Parsis are the old Iranians. The new generation Iranians are what? Muslim. Yeah. Parsis are a separate religious group within that enclosure. And remember, old Iran went all the way to India. It was a gigantic land, right?
Yes.
It's not Iran of today because it's fragmented as it is.
Your Muslim means existence, Venus?
Sorry? Venus is Ahura.
Ahura.
Ahura is existence or Venus. In the secret doctrine, that would be Sat, S-A-T. That is the Sanskrit terminology. So I'm just saying that you need to correspond it in your mind, because it's not something different than what we have been. It's the terminology that is different, and you need to reconcile it. If you came across a Parsi and you started talking to them in the terminology of the secret doctrine, they would not understand it. So we need to reconcile it with the world religions, and this is one of the oldest ones. And since they have lost the key, it actually becomes necessary for them to go to the secret doctrine. As we said last time, that portions of their religion is really explained in the secret doctrine, as she explains the Kabbalah. All of the world religions are contained in that book. So if they want to really get at their religion, they can go to the secret doctrine and fill in the blanks themselves and come up with the true interpretation of Hylazoism. So these primal spirits then are centripetal and centrifugal. One is inside out and the other one is outside in. In the secret doctrine it is at rest, and it is very interesting reading, because she says if these two forces did not exist in harmony, well, look at what the word is, harmony, what would happen? My mind is very active, and it wants to know what exactly would happen if they were not really in harmony. And the secret doctrine gives the answer. One is that the solar system would be absorbed into the sun, and if the other one won, it would be pushed to the extreme out spaces, because the sun would not be able to hold the magnetic power and hold all of the globes of our solar system in place. So they would all disperse into the outer space. So harmony then is the key that holds all of life in its appropriate assigned places from the beginning until dissolution. So this centripetal and centrifugal force is what holds everything together. Now, why is the other concept important about the time? It is important because we said the circle also represents the universe at rest. This circle means in totality, all of the universe at rest. And when the point comes into it, it is coming out of rest into the world of time and existence, right? Time and space, existence. In other words, this concept here. So we said that same idea, the spirit matter, ideation substance, one life with its dual aspects, exists in this Zervan Darego Caudata, if that is the pronunciation, because I'm making it up, I've never heard them. You can say it a different way, perhaps. So the universe then exists in this sovereign time. And this idea means, in the secret doctrine, we're told, the great day be with us. And the Egyptians called it day to come to us. It is the ring pass note of the secret doctrine. Ring pass note. So our world has a boundary. In other words, the solar system has a boundary, supposedly, because we do not know how the other worlds, where the Milky Way has billions of star systems in it. It is gigantic. And so if that is repeated time after time after time, imagine how wide the universe is. But it is stated that that is our limitation. The circle has a circumference, and that is the knowledge we can obtain. Humanity, in other words. This is our portion.
I'm not familiar with this ring pass now.
Well, it just says you cannot go beyond that boundary set for the solar system, because we do not know how the universes outside our system function. We don't even know what the other globes are functioning at. Because if you listen to the I haven't started, I'm running out of time. If you listen to the scientific explanation of our world, they're telling us that the planets of our system are dead. No. That's not true. Because there is life on the other planets, because each and every one of them is under the jurisdiction of an archangel or Dayan Chohan of the secret doctrine. And that means that there is life on those planets, but not as we know it here on Earth. We are the laggards, we are told. The laggards are on Earth because the slow learners are on Earth. Those have already passed these stages, and they are much more spiritually advanced because they're etherealized. So keep that all in mind, and this religion is expressing exactly the similar ideology. Now, again from the secret doctrine, we are told that the earth is protected. It has four corners, right? And it's this: east, west, north, south. It's protected. What does she call those? She calls them Maharajas. There are four Maharajas, and in this system, the same thing. It says that the circle is guarded by four star chieftains. Tistriya in the east, Satavasa in the west, Vanant in the south, and Haptoringa in the north. These are the four Maharajas of the secret doctrine, but this is the Zoroastrian expression of the same ideology. Now, again, the zodiac with its 12 constellations and the 7 planets are mentioned in this system. And I'm directly quoting: the sun, the moon, and the stars in the Avesta are all emblematical representations. The sun especially, the latter being the concrete and most appropriate emblem of the one universal life-giving principle, while the stars are part and parcel of the occult sciences. Yima, that is a spirit of the earth, prayed but never prayed, but went to meet the sun in the vast spaces of heavens, and bringing down with him the signs of the stars, pressed the earth with his golden ring, and forced the Spenta Almighty, that's the genius of the earth, to stretch asunder, enlarge in other words, and bear flocks, herds, and men. So that similar ideas are in this philosophy. Now, the sun is regarded as the focal point for the universal light, is it not? We are told that the light comes through the sun into our world, but the sun that is a visible sun is just a window cut into the reality which exists behind it. What do we call that? That's the central spiritual sun. So the same idea here. It says the relation between Khorshad, the undying, shining, the Swiss-horde sun, and Mihir, or Mithra, the lord of white pastures, who has 1,000 ears, well shapen, and 10,000 eyes, with full knowledge, strong, sleepless, and ever awake, has been a puzzle to the students of the Avesta, because it is very difficult to transcribe what exactly does that mean. If you read it without any explanation, what would you make of it? But esoteric cosmogony and the occult teaching on the nature of the physical sun, once accepted, which is what was just said, that it is an opening cut into that reality which is behind it, then it becomes self-evident as to what it means. So, in the Asavasya Upanishad, the spiritual sun behind the physical sun is invoked. That's the Indian system. So Avesta Khorshad, sun, is a spiritual soul, Mihir, is invoked. So we're not invoking the physical sun, but we are appealing to the reality behind it. So Mihir, in his cosmic aspect, is the universal invisible light, and by the power inherent in it, produces physical stars, which are its eyes, and in the intervening spaces, superphysical ones. Why would they be superphysical? Because they're invisible. But their music can be heard. We are told that the music of the spheres can be heard, but it is too large for our ears. What kind of senses would we need to hear them with, do you think?
I've always heard that those crystal bowls sound a lot like the music in the planet.
I have never heard it, so I cannot confirm or deny. I don't know, have never heard it. But what do you think we would need? The inner ear has to be developed. We have them. We have the inner perceptive powers of the soul, but they have to be developed in order to be attuning to the universal sounds. This student has never heard it, so I can't say what it is like. But I can assume that I'm being told the truth and have conviction that in the future, when those powers are developed, that we would be able to hear it. So, what else? There is a diagram in the Secret Doctrine that this student has copied, if I can find it, that is. Here it is. This. I will pass it along. Oh, sorry. That's me. My hands are not very grabbing this morning. I think that's the only one I've got. I thought I had two of them. That's the only one I've got. Anyway, that is a picture of or a diagrammatical representation of our Earth, and it is on page 759 of the Secret Doctrine. Doctrine 2. And HPB wrote several pages on it, because she says that even the people who are supposed to be authorities on certain religions, including Zoroastrianism, is not explained properly. And she's referring to Dr. Geiger's explanation of that chart and disagrees with it. She says, it was mentioned elsewhere that the belief in the septenary constitution of our chain was the oldest tenet of the early Iranians, who got it from the first Zoroaster. It is time to prove it to those Parsis who have lost the key to the meaning of their own scriptures. In the Avesta, the earth is considered septempartite and tripartite at one and the same time. And she gives us that diagrammatic explanation showing why it is sevenfold as well as threefold. If you look at the diagram, those globes are on three different planes of existence, and there are 7 globes. One side when we are coming down to earth, and then we get on the earth at the midpoint. We're now going towards the spirituality, and we're going to etherealize and then go upward. One is coming down, the other one is going up. So, and there are 3 different levels those globes exist on, and that's what she's talking about. And this is what the Avesta explains to the Parsis in their original writing. But we have to also say that religion is called very fragmentary, because a lot of it has been lost, and what is left is such a small portion of the original writings that if you didn't really have an explanation to it, you wouldn't know what it meant. And so the Parsis have these fragments of their scriptures, but a lot of it has been lost, so they can't really understand what it is saying. And so it is called the ruins of a religion, according to HPB. And she says, Dr. Geiger calls this incongruity, what is on that page. In other words, that there are discrepancies. The Avesta speaks of 3/3 of the earth because the Rig Veda mentions 3 earths, 3 strata or layers, one lying above the other. So there are 3 planes of existence, and Karinartha at the bottom is where we are. The Avesta, she says, has not borrowed the idea from the Rig Veda, which is the Vedic explanation of the Hindus, but that these 2 religions came from the same root, and that's why they have this same ideology. The 3 strata or layers do not refer to our globe alone, but the 3 layers of the globes of our terrestrial chain. Now there is an explanation in the ocean where it is stated that these globes are rolling together in space, coordination, but they're not in consubstantiality. Their substance is not the same. Each globe is made up of a different substance, but that they roll together in space. They're in coordination. And when our consciousness is attuned to one of them, that's all we can perceive. The other 6 we do not perceive. Now this is such a different explanation to what we are used to. People apparently find it extremely difficult to accept that there is a genius of the earth. In other words, it evolves from inside out. It is not a dead planet. It's alive. It is alive. It has in its inner core expands and gives direction, and it evolves from inside out. What do we have at the center of the earth? Well, look at the volcanoes. The magma, it is full of activity. So it has its own spiritual entity in charge of it, and according to the secret doctrine, that entity is subservient to the others. In other words, it's the lowest, we're at the lowest level here. So the three strata do not refer to our globe, but to the three layers of our globes of the terrestrial chain, 2 by 2 on each plane, one on the descending and the other one on the ascending arc. Thus, with reference to the 6 spheres or globes above our earth, the 7th and the 4th, it is septempartite, 7. While with regard to the planes over our plane, it is tripartite. There's 3 levels where those globes are. We are at the bottom. This meaning is carried out and corroborated by the text in the Avesta and the Vendidat. This is Zoroastrian. And even by the speculation and most laborious and unsatisfactory guesswork of the translators and commentators. So she says the earth chain is divided into 7 karshvars. Karshvars. This is spell it. This is an H. Karshvars, if that is how we pronounce it. So the earth then is divided into 7 planes or zones. For according to the Parsi scriptures, the 7 Karshvars are to be considered as completely disconnected parts of the earth, which they surely are, for between them there flows the ocean, so that it is impossible, as stated in several passages, to pass from one Karshvar to another. This is the Pahlavi translation. The ocean is a space, she explains, of course, for the latter was called waters of space before it was known as ether. So she's explaining that the ocean that the Parsi scriptures refer to is not the water ocean, but the air ocean, which is ether, which is what the astral light of the Kabbalah. So here is the terminology again. Now, if you don't know what it really means, you won't be able to understand it. Because if you think it's an ocean, then it would be on Earth, and you're going to get in a vehicle, a boat or something, or a ship, and you can go to it, right? But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about separate globes in the air, Moreover, the word Karshvar is consistently rendered by Dvipa, and especially Kanaritha by Jambudvipa. Now these are Indian terminology, Sanskrit, but they also divide the earth into Karshvars or Dvipas or regions, and some of them, the statement is that Krishna is in such Dvipa. Well, it obviously is not here on earth, it's somewhere in heavens, correct? Because he's resting, right? When he's not incarnated here, he's at rest in heaven. So, or nirvana, however that may be. But this fact is taken into account by the Orientalists, and therefore we find even such a learned Zoroastrian and Parsi by birth as the translator of Dr. Grieger's work, passing unnoticed and without a word of comment sundry remarks of the former on the incongruities of this kind abounding in the Mazdina scriptures. But it isn't. It's just that the explanation is not there. And she tells us over here, the ones that are on that paper are Mazdian. The Mazdian names given above have only to be replaced by those used in the secret doctrine to become an orthodox tenet. The earth, therefore, is tripartite because the chain of the worlds is situated on 3 different planes above our globe, and it is septempartite because of the 7 globes or spheres which compose the chain. Hence, the Vendidat 19, showing that Kanaritha alone is combined with Imat, this earth, while all the other Kashvars are combined with the word Avat, those upper earths. So the terminology of the scriptures is correct, but its interpretation by the authorities, in quotation marks, is incorrect. So if the Parsis were to go to the secret doctrine, this is just one little bit of explanation she gives. Now there's another one she gives on page 757. 757. And then another one. I'm sorry, I don't have the time to go over all of it, but you can do it. I'm giving you the page number so you can do it. Now, this is on page 289 where it says the third eye. It's a very interesting subject. And on page 291, she gives an explanation about Ahura Mazda, which is very interesting. She says, when the maker of the material world, Ahura Mazda, is asked, what is to give light to the Vara, which Yima made? Yima is a spirit of the earth, and is making a Vara, or enclosure, or an ark. He is told that there are uncreated lights and created lights, and that there, in Aryana Vaego, where the Vara is built, the stars, the moon, and the sun are only once a year seen to rise and set. Once a year. They rise and then set. And a year seems only as a day and night, a clear reference to the land of the gods or the polar regions. Moreover, another hint is contained in this verse, a distinct allusion to the uncreated lights, which enlighten men within his principles. So we have what in us? The Christ principle, the ray from the central spiritual sun. This is what the Zoroastrian scripture is referring to also. What else? Otherwise, no sense or reason could be found in Ahura Mazda's answer, which is forthwith followed by the verse 41, saying that every 40th year to every couple, hermaphrodite, 2 are born, a male and a female, the latter being a distinct echo of the secret doctrine of the stanza, which says, and she gives it, at the expiration of every 40 annual suns, at the end of every 40th day, the double one becomes 4. So we were hermaphrodite before. Male and female in one, in the first and the second and the third. First root race, second root race, third root race. In the middle of the third, we became monastic beings because the mind was lighted. We went through tremendous change in the third race. We became male and female, and then later on men and women. But at the beginning, we were hermaphrodite. So this book and the original scriptures of the Zoroastrians go way back. We said to the 4th root race, which are the Atlanteans, but look what it is referring to. It's going all the way to the first, second, and the third root races. And we will stop here. I'm sorry, I barely covered 1/3 of my literature that I brought, but we will answer some more questions, and perhaps some stuff will come out.
I did have a question now.
Yes. What was the question?
I don't know, I have to figure it out.
Okay.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
What you were talking about reminds me so much of a movie that's out, that was on Nova television, called The Elegant Universe. Have you seen that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, doesn't that talk about the planes? I mean, it's talking about all the different...
Yeah, but I think is more or less talking about the Earth planes, whereas the ones that we're referring to, where the other globes are rolling around in space, are not available to us. So I'm not quite sure where science is according to that. I try not to mix the two together. They are coming very close to this philosophy, but remember, this is esoteric knowledge, and esoteric knowledge and exoteric information do not always go hand in hand, because according to the scientific world, if you cannot see it, if you cannot touch it, if you cannot repeat the experiment, it cannot be. Well, this is esoteric knowledge, because you have to have all of your inner powers active and functional, partially or fully, in order to perceive the inner aspect of life. Because if we truly are not divine, what exactly would we be? It is, to this student, a lot more nobler to start at the top, at the spiritual, and bring it down, rather than starting here and trying to reach elsewhere. Because if we are considered perfect on the inner lines of our being, and we are divine human beings, then there is every possibility of the discovery of who and what we are. This was a very interesting comment the other day I heard, and it was the injunction to the Greeks: "Man, know thyself." Well, this is an injunction to all of humanity. Man, know thyself. Man, know thyself. And here's the smartness about it. They have now discovered how to figure out the human genetic code in its entirety, and they are trying to fix mutations with their symptomology in human beings. So for, was it 8,000 or 18,000, I can't even remember, dollars, you can have it, but in the future it's going to be $1,000, where people can actually do this. And to this student's mind, why would I personally want to know my genetic information? What purpose would that serve? And they're saying that then you can choose what kind of children you... Well, this is interference with the workings of nature. I think it is better to leave it alone. If you have a sickness and you're trying to discover where it is coming from, look inside of yourself and figure out where it is coming from, rather than going out and having your genetic code deciphered to see where the mutation has occurred. Because what happens when you fix it at the lower level? It's not a permanent fix, is it? You're going to come back, but our scientific world doesn't believe in that either, because they don't believe in the inner life of the human being, that this is a divine human being. This is just a frame. But my frame is a reflection of my thoughts, of my speech, and of my deeds. And if you don't sort it out where the defect is, you're going to come back and face it again. So it is better to work within yourself to see where the thought process is faulty, how you can make the speech better, and how you can be more attuned to the universal compassionate heart in your activity in the world. This, to this student, is a lot better than having to go by the genetic code. I'm just saying that there is such a materialization of the statement. This is a statement that has tremendous inner meaning. Man, know thyself means look on the inside and see who you are, not go and look at your genetic code and see who you are. That does not tell you anything. It's internal perception that needs to be active. So she says she brought the secret doctrine out to show us that the whole wide world religions, especially the old ones, all come from the same root. And that originally there were 7 root races in the world, so there were 7 different kinds of humans on Earth. Well, it makes a lot of sense. They don't all exist anymore. I think there's only 3 left. But by the same token, it gives you so much general information that in time it sits right in you, if indeed you understand what it is being said. And then you say, wow, everybody needs to know this, because it sits correctly with your reasoning powers. If it doesn't, you won't accept it anyway. But that's one reason she brought it out, to show us who and what we are, and that we're one human family. The second is, she says, she wrote it in such a way that it activates our intuitive powers and our discriminative powers, which are the internal powers of the ego. So without those, we don't really understand the inner meaning of this book either. So, yes?
Okay, I've also heard recently a lot that when you hear something like that, you said that resonates with your feeling that you know it's the truth. I've heard that when it is the truth, something you're hearing like that, and it feels that way, it feels light.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's
uplifting.
Not the truth and it's a lie, it'll tend to feel heavy.
Perhaps. And we're also told that, you know, most things have truth in it, but it's so mixed up with untruth, it becomes really hazardous trying to figure out which part of it is really true to life and which part is not. But we can learn by what truth is as well as by what it is not. Comparison. Mm-hmm. So when we compare it, it becomes obvious to this student's mind where it deviates from the truth. Because if it is universal, the principles are universal, it is general, it is of everything. Brotherhood is not a word. We're all interconnected to one another because this plane exists, this matrix exists that supports everything. Because science is finding that when they look at the tissue, for instance, they were, I think, deciphering liver. They couldn't figure out how to do it. That there is a structure. When you take everything away, there is an like empty-looking structure that holds everything together. So that matrix is definitely there, and there is a universal matrix that holds everything together too. Because if a spirit is invisible, it doesn't mean it's not there. It is there. It is supporting all the rest, but we can't see it, so it becomes very difficult to accept and believe in it. But if you turn it around and say, I'm a spirit, I am complete. In my inner self, I am beautiful. Because I'm complete, I don't need anything from anywhere else. I am a complete human being. I am beautiful, I'm a spirit. Then all the other things fall in place. When you are passing from drowsiness to sleep, put those thoughts in your mind and see what it brings. Because you're appealing to your higher self, you want to know who you really are. You're complete. Yes?
In knowing ourselves, is it also something to consider that as above, so below? Because you're talking about the cosmos and all that. Are we not that?
Well, you
in our development?
Well, we correlate to all of the principles of the cosmos. Every one of those principles are in us. we are told there is a mind principle in us, a divine mind, in fact, and Mahat is the universal, and we can tap into that resource. It's all of humanity's experience up to this point. So if we can tap into that resource, then we can get knowledge to solve problems with. But the key is those higher powers can and should be used for the purpose of benefiting all. They're impersonal, they're universal, and that is why we need a key to deciphering all this knowledge we're given, because on the higher levels of our existence we can do tremendous harm, we're told. Even though this student doesn't know what exactly that means, on the inner lines of my being, I accept it because it sits right. If you can learn, like the Atlanteans knew, they had air vehicles that they controlled with their own powers. By attuning to the sun's power, they could maneuver their vehicles with the sunlight's power. That to me is tremendously powerful if you know how to use that kind of energy, because the sun gives endless energy. Imagine what kind of destruction that would bring, which they did. They used to use it to bring destruction to land masses. They would destroy the population on a specific landmass. I don't know why humanity went in that direction, because that to me is sorcery. But we were Atlanteans, remember that, because we come back. Since we reincarnate, we are everything on this earth. Who knows what we were in our previous lives? We don't come perhaps to the same place and origin, but we go where our development is needed. So remember that we were Atlanteans, we were Cyclops, the third, we were the second, we were the first. We have been in evolution from the first to the fifth, and so nature moves to a higher expression of itself, and this is what humanity is here to do, to move forward and have a higher expression of those spiritual powers, but to benefit, not to destroy, but just to benefit. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. A couple of announcements, or one announcement particularly. On the 28th of April, there's going to be an Interlawn Symposium in Philadelphia, sponsored by the ULT Philadelphia, called A New Cycle of Opportunity and Challenge, and all is invited to that. And we're going to now have a short break for refreshments and fellowship, and then we're going to get into our roundtable discussion this afternoon on the Bhagavad Gita. These discussions occur the first and third Sunday of every month. Thank you.